All right, let's begin. What we're diving into here isn't a story. Think of it more as a clinical observation, a deep look into the human psyche. We're going to examine the systematic deconstruction of an identity. And our analysis, well, it's going to be objective, dispassionate, and hopefully pretty illuminating. So, a fever of the soul. What does that even mean? Well, from this perspective, the core problem, the pathology we're looking at, is individuality itself. Yeah, the ego, with its constant need to be separate, to be defined, it's treated like a sickness. And the mission, the protocol we're about to explore, is designed to be the cure. So every mission starts somewhere, right? The first phase here is all about diagnosis. We have to start by just observing the subject in their natural state, really getting a handle on just how fragile their constructed self actually is. And what we find is a very common condition. The subject has spent a lifetime building a personality, a self-image, an ego, really, that helps them make sense of the world. It gives them a feeling of order, of safety. But here's the thing. It's a facade. It's a mask designed to hide the complete chaos of their own unmediated reality.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the condition. Now we introduce the instrument we're going to use for the deconstruction. And let me be clear, this is not about passive observation anymore. This is an active and, a deeply invasive procedure.
The main tool is something called the mirror mask. And it's so important to get this right. This is not just some fancy metaphor. We're talking about this specific, pathological structure we're targeting. It's that curated persona, the face you show at work, the illusion of self that the subject shows to the world, and maybe most importantly, to themselves. But how do you start the procedure? You need a catalyst, an external agent. And that's where the honest guest comes in. See, when the subject meets this guest, they expect to see just another person wearing a mask. But the guest's real job is to flip the script entirely, to reveal that the mask the subject is so used to isn't a disguise at all. It's a mirror, forcing them to see what's actually there, stripped of all the pretenses. And this is the critical turning point of the whole process. The tool has been applied. The mirror is up. Now the subject is forced to finally confront what's been lurking just beneath the surface all along. So what do you think happens? What's the clinical outcome of a revelation like that? When you look into what you thought was a mask and you see not the person you've built, but the raw, unfiltered stuff underneath, the psychological shock is just immediate and overwhelming. And this is the result, this really uncanny, deeply unsettling effect. The subject's own face, probably the most familiar thing in their entire life, suddenly looks like a complete stranger's. This is the exact moment the ego, that carefully curated self, just begins to crack and fall apart. You recognize the face, sure, but the comfortable story you've always attached to it, it's gone. And here it is, the core truth that this whole procedure is designed to expose. That stranger in the mirror? That's the nameless force. It's the primal foundational stuff of the psyche, what Freud might have called the id. It's that raw, instinctual self, that whole collection of untamed desires and drives that's been running the show from behind the scenes, basically wearing the subject's face like a disguise. You can imagine the consequences of this are, well, they're severe and they're total. Once that mask is gone, you're left with absolute psychological transparency. The rotting interior psyche is just laid bare for all to see. Every single suppressed failure, every hidden lie you told yourself, every performative ritual, it's all dragged out into the open. There is absolutely nowhere left to hide. And this leads us to the successful end of the deconstruction phase. The procedure is officially complete. The subject's socialized persona, the ego, has been totally and systematically dissolved. So let's just do a quick review of how this works. Step 1. The mirror mask gets rid of all the illusions. Step 2, this exposes the nameless force. Step 3, the strain of that exposure is just way too much for the fragile ego and it completely shatters. And that leaves our subject in this weird, empty state, caught in a void between two incredibly powerful and opposing psychic forces. So with the old self totally gone, the subject is finally ready for the last stage of the mission. They're not really a person anymore in the old sense. They're a possibility. And a choice has to be made. And it all comes down to this binary choice. On one side, you've got the logic of zero. This path is basically the Freudian death instinct, the idea that deep down, there's a part of us that wants to return to the quiet, inanimate state before life. It's the ultimate peace that comes from non-existence. On the other side, you have the logic of one, and this is the incredibly difficult, painful path of taking all this terrifying new self-knowledge and trying to build a new, true, sovereign identity out of the wreckage. And really, that's the ultimate function of this whole procedure. The nameless force isn't just about destruction, it's a catalyst. It shatters the false self specifically to force this one final ultimate choice: total disillusion or true creation. The whole point of the mission is to bring the subject right to the edge of this cliff. So we've concluded our observation. The method's been explained, the results have been documented. The clinical gaze, now it turns outward. You've seen the procedure, you understand the choice. So the report is complete. Now, what is your prognosis?